Welcome. In today's audiobook we will be discussing You Are Enough, Reclaiming Confidence in a World That Profits from Your Insecurity. Written by Beneath the Book. This audiobook is more than just words. It is a mirror, a healing balm, a quiet revolution for every soul that has ever felt not enough in a world designed to make them feel small. Take a deep breath. You're not here by accident. Something in you knows it's time to come home to yourself. To stop shrinking, apologizing, performing. This is your space, your sacred pause where self-doubt dissolves and truth rises. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Insecurity Industry, How the World Keeps You Small. Let's start by looking at the story of this individual's. 12-year-old Lily stood in front of the mirror in her Lagos bedroom, holding a photo she had saved from a fashion magazine. The girl in the photo looked nothing like her. Lighter skin, straighter hair, taller, thinner. Lily sighed and pulled at her braids. She didn't want to be someone else, not really. She just wanted to be liked. In Seoul, 23-year-old Jihoon had just completed his 5th cosmetic procedure. Just one more, he told himself, though he said that the last time too. His phone buzzed. Another influencer hitting 1 million followers overnight. He stared at his own photos, obsessing over a perceived flaw no one else could see. In London, Grace was 34 and successful, on paper. But when she scrolled through Instagram after a long workday, her chest tightened. Weddings, babies, perfect homes, spontaneous travel. Why did it feel like everyone else had figured life out while she was just floating? And in Sao Paulo, Diego, a fitness coach, battled a secret shame. He built his business on showing strength, but he couldn't post a picture without airbrushing his stretch marks. He feared that if people saw the real him, they'd leave. These are not isolated stories. They are the daily rituals of quiet self-rejection that billions of us have been conditioned to repeat. Because somewhere along the way the world sold us a lie. That your worth must be earned, your value proven, your image perfected. Welcome to the insecurity industry, a global machine that thrives when you question yourself. From the moment we enter this world, we are bombarded with messages, loud, persuasive, and relentless, telling us who we're supposed to be. Boys are taught not to cry. Girls are taught to be pretty, polite, and pleasing. Black skin is marketable only if it's light. Fat bodies are encouraged to shrink. Older people are told to disappear quietly. Neurodivergent minds are labeled too much. Poor communities are sold lifestyles they can't afford, and then shamed for not having them. This is not accidental. There are entire economies that depend on your self-doubt. Multi-billion-dollar industries, beauty, fitness, fashion, supplements, social media algorithms, all carefully designed to keep you feeling not enough. If you're constantly chasing an unreachable ideal, you'll keep spending. You'll keep scrolling. You'll keep comparing. And when you're busy doubting yourself, you're easier to control. Psychologists call it manufactured insecurity, the intentional creation of dissatisfaction to drive behavior. It's the reason a woman who once loved her smile now wants veneers. The reason a teenager hides their natural hair. The reason you second-guess your voice, your ideas, your dreams. The system doesn't care about your healing. It cares about your hunger. It thrives when you believe that happiness is one purchase, one filter, one lifestyle away. And so, it keeps moving the finish line. But let's pause here. You were not born ashamed of yourself. Before the world told you what was wrong with you, your thighs, your accent, your scars, your silence, you were whole. Do you remember that version of you? The child who danced without fear of being watched? The teen who dreamed without limits? The adult who, even in struggle, still hoped? The pain of comparison is not proof that you're failing. It's a symptom of emotional malnourishment, of being fed lies instead of love. You do not need more perfection. You need more permission to be you. Reflection. So I invite you now to return to yourself. Let your hand rest gently on your heart. Feel your breath. Not the edited version of you, not the version filtered for acceptance, but the raw, real, radiant you. What would it feel like to stop performing? To rest in your own enoughness? To walk into a room and not wonder if you're too much or not enough, but instead simply know, I am. And that is enough. Now do this affirmations gently. Say these aloud if you can. Whisper them if you need to. Let them plant seeds. I am not behind. I am on my path. I do not need to shrink to be loved. I am enough, without fixing, proving, or performing. If this chapter stirred something in you, a memory, a sadness, a spark, hold on to it. Don't rush to fix it. Sit with it. Let it teach you. Healing begins with awareness, and you've already begun. In the next chapter, we'll explore who were you before the world told you who to be. A gentle excavation of the self beneath the roles, the labels, and the noise. Subscribe to this audiobook and continue walking with us on this journey back home. To you. Because you are not broken. You are becoming. And you, dear listener, are enough. Chapter 2. Who were you before the world told you who to be? Also in this chapter, let's look at the story of some individuals. In a small village in Kerala, little Meera would spend her afternoons drawing stories in the sand with a stick. She loved to create, not for approval, not for praise, but because it made her feel alive. At 5, she told everyone she wanted to be a painter. But by 12, relatives had started asking what real job she'd choose. Art doesn't feed you, they warned. By 18, Meera had packed up her sketchbooks and enrolled in accounting. Miles away in a Chicago suburb, Jamal loved ballet. His movements were fluid, his spirit light. But at 13, he overheard a group of boys laughing. That's for girls. Ashamed, he stopped dancing. Years later, in a corporate boardroom, he would feel the ache of a version of himself he abandoned too soon. In Turkey, Elif was the child who asked deep questions. About life, about God, about why people suffer. Her parents called her too sensitive. Her teacher said she talked too much. She learned to silence herself to fit in. But she missed the girl who used to wonder freely. And perhaps you too have forgotten who you were before the world handed you a mask and told you to wear it. The disconnection begins early. At some point, we begin trading pieces of ourselves for belonging. It happens subtly. A compliment here, a disapproval there, a raised eyebrow when you're too loud, a scoff when you're too soft. We absorb it, internalize it, then we adjust. We learn to smile when we're tired, to stay quiet when we disagree, to act smaller so others feel bigger, to doubt our own voice in favor of someone else's. This is the cost of social conditioning. It's how the world molds us into acceptable shapes. In school, in families, in friendships, in religion, in work. And if you're not careful, you begin to believe that the mask is your face. Why this hurts so deeply? Psychologically, the desire to belong is wired into us. According to developmental theorists like Erik Erikson and Carl Rogers, our sense of identity forms in response to feedback from our environment. If we're only affirmed when we behave a certain way, or punished when we deviate, we begin to mold our personality to survive. But survival is not the same as living. Many of us are walking around as edited versions of ourselves. We've curated personalities, softened our colors, trimmed our dreams, not out of choice but out of fear. The world told you, be this or you won't be loved. And you listened because love is oxygen. Rediscovering the unfiltered you. But what if the love you were chasing was never meant to cost you your identity? What if who you were, before you were polished, perfected, and pressed into roles, was already worthy? Who were you before they told you to be less emotional? Before you were shamed for your body, your accent, your gender, your truth? Before you were expected to perform strength while crumbling silently inside? That version of you still exists. It may be buried, bruised, quiet, but it lives. You see glimpses of it. When you laugh without caution. When you cry without apology. When you create, sing, dance, write, wander. When you speak from the gut even if your voice shakes. That is your real self trying to breathe. Letting go of roles that no longer serve you. Many of us confuse identity with role. But you are not your job title. You are not your relationship status. You are not the version of you your family prefers. You are not the mold you contorted yourself into to be safe. The real you is deeper, older, wiser. It's the you that existed before fear, before performance, before comparison. And reclaiming that self is not rebellion. It's resurrection. Reflection. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath. Ask yourself gently, who was I before the world told me who to be? Was I curious? Loud? Creative? Bold? What did I love before someone told me it wasn't good enough? Imagine meeting that version of yourself again, at the edge of a quiet forest or sitting on the floor of your childhood room. What would you say to them? What would they say to you? You do not need to become someone else. You only need to return. Do this affirmations gently. Let these soak into your spirit. Repeat them daily. I give myself permission to remember who I was before the world forgot me. I no longer shrink myself to be acceptable. I am coming home to my truest self, slowly, softly, surely. You are not here to play roles that drain you. You are here to be you fully, bravely, beautifully. Thank you for walking through this chapter. In the next one, we dive deep into a wound many of us carry silently. Stop comparing your life to a highlight reel. We'll talk about how social media rewires your self-worth and how to reclaim it with presence and truth. Subscribe to continue this healing journey. And remember, you are not too late. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are enough. Chapter 3. Stop comparing your life to a highlight reel. It was 2:17 a.m. in Tokyo and Naoko stared at her phone in the dark. She had just seen another post from an old high school classmate. A glossy photo of a perfect wedding, a caption dripping with joy and hundreds of comments that said things like, "You deserve the world," and "Power couple." Naoko set the phone down and stared at her ceiling. Her apartment was quiet. No ring on her finger. No celebration. Just the soft hum of the city outside and the weight of invisible shame pressing on her chest. She whispered into the silence. Why does it feel like everyone is ahead of me? Halfway across the world in Toronto, Jamal scrolled past another entrepreneur's milestone post. 6 figures in 6 months. It was accompanied by a sleek video montage. Private jets, champagne toasts, and a caption about working smarter, not harder. Jamal stared at it from his tiny one-bedroom where he was still pulling 10-hour shifts, wondering if he had missed the memo on how to succeed. And in Mumbai, Lena, a new mother, paused over a photo of a fellow mom holding a spotless baby in a spotless home, her hair somehow styled and her face radiant. Lena glanced around her cluttered living room. Her baby was crying. Her shirt was stained. She hadn't showered in 2 days. And the thought crept in. I'm not doing this right. Every day we consume thousands of images of other people's curated joy. We call it inspiration. But often it becomes self-comparison. And comparison, when left unchecked, becomes quiet self-destruction. What we forget is this. Social media is not real life. It's a highlights reel. The best angles, the good days, the polished moments, the victories. It's not the arguments, the doubt, the mental health dips, the late-night cries on the bathroom floor. No one posts the full story. Psychology tells us that the brain doesn't easily distinguish between real and perceived experiences. So when you repeatedly see images of others winning, your subconscious believes you're losing, even if you're growing, healing, or simply surviving. We begin to measure ourselves not against our own truth, but against someone else's filter. We ask dangerous questions. Why haven't I achieved more by now? Why does everyone else seem so confident? Why am I always behind? But behind what? Behind who? There is no universal timeline for your life. No finish line for fulfillment. Yet the world tries to sell us one, wrapped in likes, follows, and viral metrics. And we begin to believe that unless it's posted, it's not real. That unless it's glamorous, it's not valuable. That unless others approve, it's not enough. The truth is, you are comparing your unfiltered life to someone else's edited moment. You are stacking your journey against snapshots that don't reveal the whole terrain. That entrepreneur might be in debt. That couple may be emotionally distant. That fit body may be starving. That perfect home may be full of loneliness. What we see is not always what is. So what do we do with this awareness? We pause. We choose presence over performance. We remind ourselves that peace is not found in chasing validation. It's found in living truthfully, even when that truth isn't picture perfect. You are not behind. You are becoming. You are not unseen. You are unfolding. Your worth is not determined by your visibility or your speed. It is rooted in who you are, even when no one is watching. Reflection. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are scrolling through your own life. Not through a screen but through your memories. The moments no one applauded but you showed up anyway. The quiet resilience. The growth no one saw. You don't need more proof. You need more perspective. The realest parts of your life are often the ones without a caption. Do this affirmations gently. I release the need to compete with illusions. My pace is divine. My journey is valid. I honor my life even when it's messy and unshared. If you've ever felt like you were failing because someone else appeared to be thriving, let this chapter remind you. Your story matters even in silence. Especially in silence. In the next chapter we'll explore confidence without arrogance. How to rise in your own power without feeling the need to overshadow anyone else. Subscribe to this audiobook and stay close to this healing path. The world may thrive on your insecurity, but you're about to thrive because of your truth. And that is enough. Chapter 4. Confidence without arrogance. At a conference in Cape Town, Nia stood backstage, clutching her notes with trembling hands. She was the youngest panelist, a 28-year-old startup founder, sharing a stage with CEOs twice her age. As the audience clapped for the previous speaker, Nia leaned toward her mentor and whispered, "What if I come off as arrogant?" In Tokyo, Kenji had just received a promotion. When his colleagues congratulated him, he smiled humbly and said, "I just got lucky." He didn't want them to think he was full of himself. He didn't want to outshine anyone. Meanwhile, in Toronto, Fatima declined yet another podcast invitation. "I'm not that interesting," she told the host. "I'm not a thought leader." She had built a successful nonprofit from scratch, but still doubted she had the right to take up space. And in New Delhi, Arif hesitated to share his art online. He feared that celebrating his work might be seen as ego, not effort. Confidence, real, grounded, unshakable confidence, is often misunderstood. Too often we've been taught that humility means shrinking, that self-celebration is prideful, that being visible is dangerous. That confidence is only safe if it comes wrapped in disclaimers, apologies, or disclaiming statements like, "I don't mean to brag." But there is a quiet kind of confidence. One that doesn't shout, doesn't pose, doesn't dominate. It simply is. Rooted. Warm. Certain. Let's unpack it. We live in a world that has confused confidence with arrogance. Confidence says, "I belong." Arrogance says, "You don't." Confidence is internal. It's about knowing your value. Arrogance is comparative. It depends on someone else being less. And yet, many people, especially women, especially people of color, especially those from marginalized communities, are taught to fear their own brilliance. We soften our voices. We minimize our achievements. We make ourselves smaller, palatable, invisible. Not because we lack ability, but because we've been conditioned to believe that being seen is dangerous. We forget that it's not arrogance to own your strength. It's integrity. True confidence doesn't walk into a room and announce itself. Doesn't need to. It's the calm in your tone when you speak what you know. It's the clarity in your eyes when you stand for what you believe. It's the steadiness in your body when you don't rush to prove your worth. Confidence without arrogance looks like saying, "Thank you" instead of, "It was nothing" when you're complimented. Applying for a job even if you meet only 80% of the requirements. Speaking your opinion even when your voice shakes. Choosing not to over-explain yourself to those who never try to understand you. Here's the deeper truth. When we see someone standing in their worth, it challenges every part of us that still doubts our own. That's why people may call you too much. That's why others may try to dim your light. It has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with the discomfort your confidence stirs in those who haven't yet found their own. So do not let someone else's discomfort become your cage. You are not arrogant for owning your voice. You are aligned. Reflection. Imagine walking into a room and not shrinking, not overcompensating, not scanning for approval, just being. What would it feel like to carry your confidence like quiet fire, not to impress but to express? Confidence without arrogance is not a performance. It's presence. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about being fully yourself. Even if your hands tremble, even if your voice shakes, you still belong. Do this affirmations gently. Let these truths echo softly in your heart. It is not arrogance to take up space. It is my birthright. I can shine without dimming others. My quiet confidence speaks louder than any performance. You don't have to wait to feel confident to be confident. Confidence is not a mood. It's a muscle. And the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. In the next chapter, we'll explore building trust with yourself, the foundation of lasting self-worth. You cannot be confident if you don't trust yourself. And that trust can be rebuilt step by step. Subscribe and continue listening. Keep going. Keep growing. You are enough. Not in the future, not if you change, but right now as you are. And that is more than enough. Chapter 5. Building trust with yourself. She sat in her car for 10 minutes after parking, the key still in the ignition, her hands gripping the wheel. Another meeting. Another room full of people she'd have to smile for. Another day of saying yes when her heart was screaming no. Her name was Tara. 31. A social worker in Mumbai. Everyone saw her as reliable, kind, always available. But inside she was exhausted. She didn't know what she wanted anymore. She only knew how to keep people pleased, to avoid the guilt that followed every no. Somewhere along the way she had learned not to trust her own voice. On the other side of the world in New York, Malik was struggling with a different kind of silence. He had dreams, real, pulsing ones, of opening a creative studio. But each time he made a plan, he abandoned it. I'll fail, he told himself. Who am I to think I can do this? He blamed bad timing. But the truth was he didn't trust himself to follow through. Then there's Lean, a mother of 2 in Vietnam. She had spent years making decisions based on fear. Fear of what her parents would say. Fear of making the wrong move. Fear of regret. And now, in her 40s, she didn't know where she ended and others began. Different continents. Different lives. But one thread connects them all. A broken relationship with the self. Let's be honest. If a friend betrayed your confidence, ignored your feelings, and constantly dismissed your needs, would you trust them? Probably not. So what happens when you do that to yourself, day after day? Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you silence your intuition to avoid conflict, a crack forms in your inner foundation. Over time you stop believing in your own voice. You start outsourcing your decisions. You become disconnected from your truth. This is not weakness. It's a survival response. Many of us were raised in environments where our boundaries were ignored, our emotions invalidated, or our choices controlled. We learned early that approval was safer than authenticity. But survival patterns are not meant to become life sentences. Self-trust is not about being perfect. It's about being present with yourself. It's the quiet knowing that even when I'm unsure, I've got me. Let's break this down. There are 3 pillars of self-trust. Emotional honesty. Are you telling yourself the truth even when it's uncomfortable? Follow through. Do you keep the promises you make to yourself, even the small ones? Self-compassion. When you fall short, do you punish yourself or do you offer grace? When these pillars are broken, you begin to live externally, checking other people's opinions before trusting your own gut. You become hyper-aware of how you're being perceived but numb to how you actually feel. This is how you lose yourself. And slowly, this is how you can come back. Let's imagine a young boy named F in Nigeria. He loves to draw. Every chance he gets, he sketches superheroes, cars, his family. But his father tells him, drawing won't feed you. Be serious. So F pushes his pencils aside and buries his passion. Years later, he's in a job that pays well, but he feels nothing. He doesn't trust his joy anymore. Now imagine if F had been told, if you love it, pursue it. Your joy matters. Imagine if someone had taught him that self-trust is not rebellion. It's remembering. Rebuilding trust with yourself begins slowly. It begins by listening, not just to what you should do but to what you feel. Start small. If you promise yourself you'll drink more water, keep that promise. If your body says rest and your mind says push, choose rest sometimes. If something feels wrong, don't talk yourself out of that knowing. The more you honor your truth, the louder it gets. The more you betray it, the quieter it becomes. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about creating safety within so you can finally hear yourself again. Reflection. Place your hand gently over your stomach. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, when did I stop listening to me? Was it a heartbreak? Failure? A parent's disapproval? A moment you ignored your instinct and got hurt? Now tell yourself, gently, not with judgment but with love, I forgive you for abandoning yourself. I am learning to come home. Because it's never too late to rebuild the bridge between you and your inner voice. Do this affirmations gently. Let these settle deep into your spirit. Repeat slowly. My inner voice is wise and I am learning to trust it. I keep promises to myself, even the quiet ones. Each day I come home to myself with compassion and courage. The world may not teach you how to trust yourself, but you can choose to learn. And every choice matters. Even the ones no one sees. If this chapter reminded you of something you've buried, let that be a sign, not of shame but of awakening. You're ready to reclaim your voice. You're ready to trust your own steps again. In the next chapter, we'll explore the quiet power of self-belief, the inner anchor that can hold you steady when the world tries to shake you. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs it, and continue walking this sacred journey with us. Because you are not lost. You are remembering. And your voice, your truth, is enough. Chapter 6. The Quiet Power of Self-Belief. The first time Leah ever spoke up in a board meeting, her voice trembled. She was the only woman of color in the room, a new hire in a London tech company filled with fast talkers and polished resumes. Her palms were damp, her mind racing. What if I sound stupid? What if they dismiss me? But she spoke anyway. And when the room fell silent afterward, not from mockery but from respect, something shifted inside her. She realized the ground didn't shake when she claimed space. It held her. Thousands of miles away in a small apartment in Mumbai, Rajiv wrote his first code after 3 years of doubting himself. He had no formal degree, just an online course and a stubborn belief that he could learn. The job rejection emails piled up, but so did his resolve. One day a startup took a chance on him, and now he leads a team of engineers who once felt the same fear. And in a quiet suburb of Toronto, 16-year-old Myra whispered to her mirror, I believe in me. It was small. It wasn't loud. No one heard it but her. But it was the first time she didn't look away from her own reflection in shame. The power that doesn't shout. We often associate power with volume, big declarations, bold actions, charisma that commands attention. But the deepest form of power isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It's quiet. It's steady. It's the voice inside that says, I can do this, even if no one claps. Self-belief isn't arrogance. It's not the same as thinking you're better than others. It's the simple, radical act of trusting that what's inside you is enough to begin. The psychology of self-belief. Self-belief is a psychological anchor. It's what psychologists call self-efficacy. Your internal sense that you can influence your own life, your choices, your outcomes. People with high self-efficacy don't necessarily have more talent. They just keep going. They're more likely to try, more likely to fail forward, and more likely to bounce back when they do. But here's the painful truth. For many of us, our self-belief was eroded early. Maybe you had a parent who only praised perfection. Maybe you were punished for speaking up. Maybe you never saw anyone who looked like you doing what you dreamed of. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive, too ambitious, or too much. Over time, these messages become internalized, shaping how we see ourselves. We stop asking. We stop trying. We don't even realize we've silenced ourselves, because we've been conditioned to distrust our own voice. Global pressure, personal silence. Across the globe, self-belief is often filtered through cultural norms. In many African homes, humility is survival. Children are taught not to boast, even if they're talented. In parts of Asia, collectivism means your dreams must not rock the family boat. In the West, self-expression is encouraged, but only if it fits inside the boxes of palatable success. Yet, so what happens when your truth doesn't fit those molds? You dim your light. You defer. You doubt. And, buried beneath all the conditioning, is the voice that remains. The one that still whispers, "There's more in me." The rebuild begins gently. You don't have to believe in yourself with your whole heart to start. You only need a sliver. A crack of light. Start with small acts of trust. Speaking up even when your voice shakes. Applying for the job even if you don't check every box. Wearing the outfit even if someone might judge. Creating, sharing, asking, resting, even when you feel unworthy. Each time you choose yourself, your self-belief grows stronger. Not because the world approves, but because you did it anyway. Reflection. Take a moment to think back. Can you remember a time when you surprised yourself? When you did something hard, something brave, something you weren't sure you could do? That moment was proof. Not of perfection, but of courage. Let that memory anchor you now. Let it remind you, you can. You don't need to become someone else to be worthy of belief. You just need to return to the part of you that never gave up. Do this affirmations gently. My voice matters even when it shakes. I believe in the version of me that keeps showing up. I trust myself to grow through what I go through. If this chapter awakens something inside you, a memory, a strength, or a tear, stay with it. Let it rise. Let it become your starting point. You don't have to roar to be powerful. You just have to believe, softly, steadily, truthfully, in who you are. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the truth that you don't need to be fixed. You need to be heard. A powerful unlearning of the idea that you're a problem to solve, and a reintroduction to your innate wholeness. Subscribe, follow this audiobook, and share this space with someone else who needs to remember. You don't need noise to be enough. Your quiet power is already here, and it's waiting to be claimed. Chapter 7. You don't need to be fixed, you need to be heard. Maya had always been told she was too emotional. At 5, she was sensitive. At 12, dramatic. At 19, unstable. Now, at 30, she sat across from a therapist, fidgeting with her sleeves, whispering, "I think something's wrong with me." Her voice cracked not from weakness but from years of holding it in. What she didn't know, what most of us don't, is that her pain didn't need a label. It needed listening. She didn't need to be fixed. She needed to be heard. Across continents, cultures, and conversations, the same lie echoes. That if you feel deeply, struggle often, or don't bounce back fast enough, you are broken. In Mumbai, Rakesh hides his anxiety behind endless work hours, terrified someone will think he's not man enough. In Berlin, Annika swallows panic attacks in board meetings, smiling through the storm so she won't seem weak. In Manila, Josefina silently endures postpartum depression, brushing it off as just being tired. And in Brooklyn, Marcus jokes his way through trauma, laughing louder when the pain gets closer. Different names, different cultures, same ache. We've been taught to silence what makes us human, and perform a version of ourselves that fits someone else's comfort. The psychology of shame and fixing. This pressure to fix yourself is often rooted in toxic resilience. A world obsessed with productivity, speed, and control will always pathologize pain, because pain is inconvenient. It interrupts. It slows down. It demands attention. But not everything painful is pathological. Crying after a loss isn't a weakness. Feeling numb after betrayal isn't dysfunction. Taking time to heal isn't laziness. Yet instead of creating space to be seen, society gives us solutions to be solved. Here's a 3-step hack. Just think positive. Be strong. Move on. But healing isn't linear. And it doesn't happen in silence. You are not a problem to solve. The moment we treat emotions like glitches to be debugged, we lose the wisdom they offer. Anxiety might be your body saying, something here doesn't feel safe. Sadness might be grief speaking truths your mind is not ready to say aloud. Anger might be your soul standing up for boundaries long ignored. And your need to talk, to tell your story, to be understood, is not a burden. It's biology. We are wired for connection. Not performance. Not perfection. But presence. The healing power of being heard. In a study conducted by psychologists at UCLA, researchers found that simply labeling your emotions, putting feelings into words, reduces the brain's stress response. That means, speaking your truth even if no one fixes it is powerful. When someone truly listens, not to reply, not to judge, but to witness, healing begins. That's why therapy works. That's why journaling helps. That's why voice notes to your best friend at 2 a.m. feel like medicine. Because being heard brings you back into a relationship with yourself. Reflection. A letter to the you that feels broken. So if no one has told you lately, let me say this with gentle honesty. You are not broken. You are carrying the weight of expectations, carrying the grief of never being fully seen, carrying wounds no one took the time to understand. And maybe the next step isn't to fix anything. Maybe it's to listen, to sit with your inner child, bruised but breathing, and whisper, I hear you, I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Do this affirmations gently. Let's speak truth into the spaces shame has tried to occupy. I am not a problem. I am a person, growing, unfolding, healing. My feelings are valid even if others don't understand them. I don't need to be fixed. I deserve to be heard. You've reached the final words of this journey. But maybe it's really just the beginning. If you listened closely, not just with your ears but with your heart, then something inside you has shifted. A soft unraveling. A quiet remembering. You've walked through the shadows of insecurity, unlearned the lies, faced the mirrors, and reclaimed your voice. Not the voice the world tried to silence. Not the version of you shaped by fear, filters, or applause. But the real you. The steady you. The enough you. And if you take only one thing with you from this audiobook, let it be this. You were never meant to fit into a mold that was too small for your soul. You were never broken. Only buried beneath noise, pressure, and performance. Now you've remembered that you are allowed to take up space. That you do not have to compete to be worthy. That your softness is not a weakness. And your presence, exactly as you are, is a gift. Wherever you go from here, go with this truth tucked gently in your chest. You don't need to earn your worth. You already are your worth. If this audiobook spoke to you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear these words. Leave a review, subscribe to our channel, and join our growing community of listeners reclaiming their confidence. One chapter, one breath, one truth at a time. Thank you for trusting this space. Thank you for choosing yourself. And remember always, you are enough. With healing, hope, and honor,